All right, you are now tuned in to the Rotated Views podcast. I am your host, Jimmylee Velez. I'm here with Goose and Gabe. Man in the Mirror Part 2. In this episode, we discuss reflection, contemplation, self-inquiry, and insight. We revisit these topics from episode 47 and completely break down the process of reflection, the importance of it, and its advantages. We wrap the episode up with quotes from Alan Cohen and Thomas Pane. Guys, if you're new, thank you for joining us. Don't forget to download and subscribe. We drop a new episode every Tuesday morning for your listening pleasure. Kicking things off, gentlemen.
What up?
Last month of the year.
Yep.
We made it. We're alive, thank God.
It's crazy. It doesn't feel like it.
That is wild. What a year, you know what I mean?
Certainly.
But anyway, so back 3.5 years ago, we did an episode more than 3.5 years ago titled Man in the Mirror. And we talked about reflection. So I thought it was a fantastic time to revisit episode 47 and our current views of the crew, so to speak. Now, we will do a year-end wrap up episode, so we're not going to talk about the entire year or whatever, but I do want to talk about the importance of reflection, why we do it, and how you can take advantage of it, and the items that come from it. So obviously we all reflect. How deep we go into analyzing, I believe, makes all the difference, right? I guess we could just go into, what when you guys think of reflecting, what do you think of?
I guess things you've done the most recent, like the past couple days, past couple weeks, whatever, and kind of figure out like if whatever you're trying to accomplish, if you kind of like if you think you've done it, or how you can improve and stuff like that. If that makes any sense.
Yeah,
going back to check, going back to see what's like a reflection in the mirror. You're checking on something. You see something that you've done.
It's interesting too, because there's a lot of reflection can happen without any improvement, right? So you can look back. There's people who probably think about their past and think about what they did, but they continue to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
It's interesting, but you can learn from it. You can learn a lot from it, and it's the folks who want to become the best versions of themselves, so to speak, that use that reflection for, I guess, future experiences.
So I guess I guess journaling is like a form of like reflection, but like that's just a more like documentation than it is like, I guess, really doing anything with that, unless you like plan to do anything with that. But
I mean, it doesn't, you don't have to be, like an author or anything, but it gets the flow, your thought flow going, right?
Yeah. I guess helps compile like everything that I guess maybe what you're thinking of into actual like a physical thing you can go back and actually literally
read. It brings like a thought to a physical form too.
Yeah.
Actually, that's actually a really good way of looking at it too. So once you said that, it reminded me of, do you remember like in I forget what subject of school this was, but you had to do the web, and it was like a web, or maybe it was like constructing a book, but I also want to think it had to do with science too, but maybe it was just like a thought process of what your book was going to be about, and in the center you put like the title of the book, and then for like you put a line with another bubble, and each bubble had like per chapter, and then from those chapters went more bigger bubbles, and they called it a web. I think that's what they called it.
I do have a vague recollection of like doing something like that.
No, yeah, but I guess I'm talking like 20 years ago. But
yes.
So yeah,
I mean, I guess is that like English class? I guess you're doing like sort of like a book report type.
Yeah,
thing?
I think so, and it just helps develop your thoughts in, I guess, more detail.
Yeah, because organize it.
Yeah, because like if I were to think about something, it's like, oh yeah, I want to write a story about my own life, right? Like I want to write an autobiography, right?
Yeah.
If I write that down and bubble out each year one, year two, like if I say year one right now, literally, if I say it right now, I can think of X, Y, and Z. Basically, I'm basing that off of pictures that I've seen and what people told me, right? Sure. And so, but if I start really writing it out, I can guarantee more ideas. It's going to generate way more than just thinking off the top of my head.
Start jogging the memory.
It's there, yes, but exactly, jogging the memory, truly reflecting, because once you start seeing that word, you're looking at that word written, you're like, what else can I derive off that?
But like kind of like a weird example of like literally like an educational thing was like, there was some book or movie we like did for English class, that like, you know, you have, like you said, you have like the subject, you have like the basic outline of whatever, like you do a summary of the story, then there's like questions or something. I forget what it was. It's like some kind of comprehension thing, like to kind of summarize whatever the story or whatever you learned. It was like, I think we had questions and stuff from there. But I remember in some part of it, it was like towards the end there, like there was a part like in, I think it was The Outsiders. I don't remember that movie or the book, whatever.
Yes.
So there was some part in there, there was like a fire or whatever in there. I somehow I didn't write that in the summary of the book itself, like in the summary of the story. But there was a question towards the end where I mentioned that, and my teacher was like, "What fire are you referring to?" But not realizing that like I didn't refer to it at all during like my actual like book summary of it.
Gotcha.
So she's like, it was kind of like a thing like, it's always a joke. My family's like, "Oh, what are you talking about?" Like with the fire, but it's like. It was a thing of that, like of you. I didn't organize what I was talking about, so when I referenced it later on, it made no sense in terms of what if somebody didn't know what the story was, that wouldn't make much sense to that.
Mm-hmm. That's the best way to put it. Organizing your thoughts.
Yeah,
that's the exact best way to put it. Because when you really truly do reflect back on things, there's so many lessons that you can learn out of it, right? There's so many stepping stones that you can utilize for, again, like I said earlier, future events.
Yeah.
There's a power that comes with that. So the person who constantly reflects, right, and learns from that reflection is definitely 100% elevating themselves to another level.
Sure.
It might not be huge steps, but you're definitely moving up a notch.
Because you're definitely more conscious of the actions you're taking in order to like improve on them.
There's also, you know, just the awareness.
Yeah.
Right? Because I can reflect. That doesn't, just because I'm reflecting doesn't mean I'm reflecting on everything that truly did happen.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Right? And it's my opinion, right? It's my perspective. How I see things
Yes.
is that reflection.
Sure.
So me and you could reflect on the same event and guaranteed we're going to have totally different things.
Yes.
Right? We're going to bring up totally different topics. And so it's the angle you view things at. There's people who I'm very self-aware when I do like a presentation or something, right? And so I'm aware of like everything, every little thing that's going on. Excuse me. And so when I'm done, not in a negative way, I like critique everything I did. Oh, I could have did this better. I don't try to beat myself up, but at the same time, I want to improve for the next time. And some presentations are going to be the same. It's the same presentation. I just have to give it 5 times.
Yeah.
Right. And so, out of respect for the audience, I want to get better, and I want to be efficient and effective in my communication. So I'm going to reflect on what I just did. So yeah, it might seem like I'm beating myself up, but I think it's appropriate.
And that for too, especially if you're repeating this, I guess the same information too, then it helps you get more comfortable with it. So like then you can, actually improvise or whatever as you go along because you're actually more comfortable with the material in itself, and then you know how to just better present the information.
100%. I mean, to that note, you could also be making a mistake and not realizing you're making it without reflection.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? So there's something that could be highlighted in your reflection that you can avoid the next time, right? But because you didn't reflect, you're still, stumbling across X, Y, and Z, or not fully operating at your full potential.
Something like that, like if something you don't know you're doing, does that like...
That's the awareness part.
But then, do you also too like even if you I guess record like your presentation, blah, 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 but you're so used to you doing it yourself, you don't realize you're doing it. Does that mean like you help getting outside perspective help bring that like
100%? It doesn't have to. All reflection is not self-reflection. You know what I'm saying? Self-reflection is a form of reflection. Both of us can reflect. Like I was saying before, we can both reflect on let's just say it was a speech, and we're watching me give a speech, right? And whatever, it was recorded and we're both watching. You're going to be looking at stuff that I'm not looking at, right? You're going to be looking at, oh man, you kind of stumbled on X, Y, and Z. I'm looking at, my demeanor. I'm looking at, just because what I'm looking for is totally different. So I think it's very important that you have another set of eyes, of course. Yeah. I mean, that's just like going back to the book example. That's just like writing a rough draft or having someone proofread.
Sure.
That's what you
get like an editor and all stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think it's important. But a lot of times we just keep it at that and we stop right there, right? We stop at the book reports from high school. We stop at the play performance from 7th grade. The man in the mirror topic is brought forth 3.5 years ago and brought forth again today is because a lot of this stuff stops because it's not something presented on a day-to-day basis post high school.
Sure.
Unfortunately, that's a real life situation that happens to many, many people. You're not forced to read books. Like you just said, you had to give a book report about The Outsiders, right? Did you ever pick up another book since high school and write a book report on it? I'm probably gonna say no. Not many people do, but you have picked up other books. Luckily for you, you're into personal development like I am, but not everyone is. And we do a lot of stuff, even though we're not enjoying them at the time, so to speak, but they are beneficial. Hence the reason why you're in a learning environment called school, right? We stop and we opt out of learning environment because we think the next step is college when it's not, right? You have to continually be in a learning environment for the rest of your life. And otherwise, you're not going to be as effective as you could be. You're not going to tap into the potentials that are dormant inside you. You're not going to, crack them open to, come alive, so to speak. And so the reason why I like to bring up topics like this again is because I know there's someone listening right now who's like, yeah, I do. And I'm, when we do speak, we're chin checking ourselves.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, I do need to reflect more. I do need to think about, my parenting. And that's a whole other topic. That, I have conversations with my son, whatever, and I drop him off at school or drop him off somewhere else. I'm driving home thinking, how could I have made that trip, even though it was probably under 10 minutes, most effective? Instead of us just blasting music, now I'm very conscious. I have the music off or it's very low, and I'm telling the dude, you got to do X, Y, and Z today. Make sure, have the best day. I'm praying for you. I tell him I'm praying for you. He's like, he'll come and I'll pick him up from school. He's like, Dad, were you praying for me today? I was like, I told you I do. He says, I had a good day. And I know it's because you prayed for me. I was like, did you pray today? He's like, I prayed that we have shelter. And that was our conversation today, driving and picking him up from home for school. Now, first of all, thank God that I had the ability to have that time with my son, right? Because that's precious time that you don't even feel it, and he's probably whining the whole way to school, and then by the time he's done, he's probably just happy that school's over. So he said something brilliant to his dad. He's like, oh, Dad's gonna really eat this up, right? So he just fish it to him, you know what I mean?
Sure.
But I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah.
Now, there's other people who have that. Are you taking advantage of it? I'm not saying I'm fully taking advantage of it, but it's something I reflected on. I noticed, instead of blasting music, I'm having a conversation with my son, who is an absolute sponge at this age, right? 6, 7 years old. My son's, 7, but I'm just saying. Where do you go from there? You know what I mean? You don't stop is the whole point of what I'm trying to say. Even if, so in high school, I didn't have a child, right? So I wouldn't, none of this stuff would have popped up in my head.
Sure.
So did I drop him off, probably not in the most effective way and not having like the best conversation? Yeah, that's what I thought about driving back home. And I'm like, dang, I could have said like more, something more influential. Sure. Instead of, did you hear, I like this song, you know what I mean? Yeah. Which there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. And I'm not saying you have to have a motivational speech to your 7-year-old kid every time you're dropping off. I'm not saying any of that. But I noticed that, maybe I could insert it every once in a while. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, when I've been around you always do, to some degree, yeah. I mean, you always put it everywhere. So, I mean, but it's not like over the top beating you in the head with it all the time.
Yeah. Well, I did at one point. I mean, I felt like I did at one point. But I feel like I had to go through that to understand how obnoxious that is. Sure. Mm-hmm. Right? And if you don't, like, we're not perfect, right? Yeah. And I'm not perfect in my communication. I'm not perfect in the flow. But it was because I looked at man in the mirror and reflected on how can I be better. It's like, dude, I'm getting a vibe that I'm annoying every time I bring X, Y, and Z up, right? How can I still insert it? But I feel like I have to. There's something burning inside me that I feel like I have to. Okay, well, how can you communicate that in a different way? And it's just questions you ask yourself. It could be a question I bring up to someone else and say, what do you think? I just saw someone post something that I posted, oh my goodness, I'm not exaggerating, probably 12 years ago.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I saw someone post it recently and said, by what you know me as, what profession do you think I should be? what profession do you think I would be good at?
This is something you posted 12 years ago?
I sent a text message to a bunch of my friends. I'm not even kidding you. It was like in 2008.
I vaguely remember.
You vaguely remember that, right? And I remember I was working from home. I was at my parents' house. I was probably like a year out from graduating. And I'm like, wow, is this like what? I hope I'm doing the right thing. I feel like I'm doing the right thing. And I read that. I read it somewhere. I don't know where it was. So I sent a text. It was like, it was probably like a personality quiz I took or something like that.
That sounds like that type of thing.
Yeah. Anyway, so he just posted it. And it was funny because he was getting responses he did not think aligned with
what he was going towards.
Yeah, so this is this guy now. Literally last week it was posted. We're in 2020. So 12 years later, this is something people are still contemplating and reflecting upon, right? And he looked himself in the mirror. Was like, "And am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing?"
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I guess he wanted feedback. It was funny though, because then he got the feedback and he didn't like the feedback. So, which is also interesting in itself, right? That, I mean, you can go a whole other direction with that. I think there's something too when what I was just talking about, something that I did 12 years ago about reminiscing and enjoying the reflection instead of, the way we're talking about sounds more of like a critique or a learning experience. Yeah. Reflection does have an enjoyment value, right? And people call it, it's reminiscent. Remember the good old times back when we were kids. A lot of times you're laughing at yourself because we're thinking, you look at, pictures in yearbooks or things like that, and you see hairstyles, and you're thinking, what in the world were we thinking? And it's funny, right? And you just start laughing, or the things you said, or the things you wrote in, people's yearbooks, or the quote that you left everyone with the world with, and you thought you were leaving the world with this quote. Like the world was going to read that. No, I'm serious. Yeah. Like maybe eventually, maybe you build enough credibility or celebrity that maybe it will be. Yeah, but I'm saying, I felt like when I was filling this, I'm like, man, world's watching. What kind of quote am I gonna leave? And so you start reading these things like, man, because I feel like at every age there comes a time when it's just like, you probably think, well, this is as much as I know. I mean, this is it. I mean, I think I know it all to some level. You really do think that. I'm not saying everyone thinks that simultaneously. I sure as heck don't think that now. Yeah. But there's a stage. Let me speak for myself. There was a stage in my life where I thought I knew it all. And it was somewhere between, I don't know, 19 and 21. For whatever reason, I thought I had it all figured out. I know exactly what everything was. I don't know why. I have some ideas, but I really didn't enter real life. No. I didn't really experience real life at that point. But anyway, so when I think back on this, I'm not mad at myself. I get to laugh because I've since learned that's not the case, right? But I've also since learned that it's almost childlike, so I can't really be mad at myself either. Sure. You know what I mean? It's so immature. So it's like, forgiving yourself. So you have to have that reminiscing value where you can laugh at yourself. I think if you're constantly beating yourself up, you're not enjoying life either. There's a time for it, right? But there is that forgiving thing. So when you're reflecting and you're looking at the man in the mirror and maybe it's not everything you want it to be, you have to have that forgiving emotion there somewhere. It has to be inserted. Otherwise, that man in the mirror is going to get to a point where it's more negative than positive.
Becomes a carnival mirror. Right.
And you don't have to necessarily be overjoyed with everything, right? Just understand when anyone looks at the man in the mirror, it's a work in progress. We're growing, we're moving forward, right? And so it's important to quote critique yourself, but have that forgiving value,
but not be like hypercritical.
Yeah, I mean, none of us have it all figured out.
Sure.
So I mean, why would I be that hard on myself now? if I did some outlandish, stupid thing, yeah, I'm going to be a lot more harder on myself than,
Of course.
if things are kind of moving along kind of smoothly. Nothing ever happens the way you plan it. I don't care what anyone says. It's like, oh, I said I was going to hit that goal and by this time next year, and guess what? I hit that goal. Yeah, but it's not exactly how you planned it, right? Let's not lie to yourself. It either happened super fast, like way faster.
Yeah.
2 months later, not exactly particularly how you had it, because when you break it down, let's just say you're looking to have like $10,000 worth of sales in a month. So you want to have $10,000 worth of sales on a monthly basis by this time next year, right? And you say something like that, and when you break it down, you're like, and in January, I'm going to have $500 worth of sales. And in February, $1,000. And in March, $2,000. And you just keep, because the way you broke it down was, how do I get to $10,000? And you broke it down evenly.
So you just kind of slowly escalated it.
Yeah. Life doesn't work that way.
Sure.
You could have 500 a month all the way through August.
Yeah.
Right? And all of a sudden, you tweaked one thing in your marketing campaign, and boom, you went to $8,000 of sales. 8,000, 9,000, 10,000, boom, you got there. Who's to say that's, yes, you did get there, but that's not how you planned it, right? So it doesn't happen exactly how you planned it. The important thing to realize is that you're getting there, and that you got there, right? Right, because there's a lot of people, you talk to a lot of successful people, and you could see there's also pain in their eyes because not everybody's going to make it. You know what I'm saying? And you had to lose some friends, and you had to lose some family members. You had to lose some money. You had to lose some ideas that you held on to so strongly for whatever reason. So the process is painful along the way, but it's also rewarding as hell because of those little things you've overcome, because you overcame those challenges. You withstood whatever the winds of life, so to speak, right? And you know what you went through. And so, again, you have to give yourself credit. Here's where a lot of people, it's like when I'm only 25. I'm only 23, and look what I did. I'm only 35, and look what I still did. I crushed it. Look at that. And to me, that's someone, either your goals are too low or you're over-crediting yourself. Right? So I do think you should celebrate. Seriously, you have to celebrate. That's part of it.
Yeah.
But you, in the midst of reaching a goal, you also put a ceiling when you just said, I'm only blah 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 blah, whatever it is. Because now you're saying, all right. So you're only 23. So when you're 24,
you can only do this much in that
yeah.
age
So
range.
now what? So are you done?
Yeah.
Or the other way, it's like I literally know someone every single year of their life says, I'm only whatever age that was.
Yeah.
And look what I did. I'm only, and look what I did. And when I look back on it, what they did was really not that impressive. But in their mind, and here's the thing, I'm not taking anything away from them. What they eventually did, you got to give props to,
Sure.
right? And which I do. But what I'm saying is, that person might have been 10 times further than what they are today. Right? So they capped their potential year by year by over-crediting themselves and almost feeling bad for themselves. Yeah, but I'm only 23. You gave yourself an excuse by saying that. Oh, you accomplished all that, and you're only... That's an excuse. What if you doubled that? Because now you're a comparison of whoever you're comparing yourself to.
See, I thought you were taking it like the more positive. Like you did all this, and you're only you did it at such a young age. That's what I thought you were kind of like going towards.
No, basically this person was coming up.
They're making an excuse that they could only do so much because they were the age. I thought you meant they did so much because they were such a young age. I took it the positive way of that, but
that's the negative way. Yeah.
Okay.
So that can go both ways. Yeah. But even still, one should be momentarily, right?
Sure.
And so you're like, yo, wow, look what I accomplished. That's a celebratory one.
Yes.
Look what I accomplished, and I'm only 25.
Yes, that's what I thought you were saying. Yeah.
Man, I can't wait to see what I can accomplish, but I'm 30. Yes, that is a whole other beast. This was more like, I'm only 23,
I can only do so much.
Yeah, I got like 7 more years like 7 more years till I'm 30. Because here's a problem.
Almost like you have to wait till you're that age.
Exactly. If you set the goal to be a millionaire by 30 and you're 23 and let's just say you're making $100,000, you're like, oh, dude, I'm only 23. I got plenty of time, to be a millionaire.
Yeah.
And depends on how you look at all that. There's so many moving components to that. That what happens to the guy who's making $25,000 a year, right? And they're the same age.
Yeah.
And eventually is the millionaire by 27. And the guy who was 23 and making 4 times the amount is literally making somewhat around that same range. Let's just bump it 50 grand and say he's making 150. That's fantastic money. But your goal was $1 million, right? I'm only 27. That's what you're going to hear.
Yeah.
Whereas the guy who was 23 just kept pushing. He's like, wow, I'm 27. I'm already a millionaire. Let's see what I can still do in the next 3 years to see I can push it. Maybe I can be multi and maybe I can, earn X, Y, and Z. It's a very different outlook. But anyway, you could also, from reflection, looking at the quote man in the mirror, you can also play that blame game. I'm only 23 staring in the mirror. I got these scars on my face because that was genetic. And then you start blaming, because the blame game, right? You're blaming your family. You're blaming your family tree. I'm this way because of my family tree. Right? So, it's like me. I look at I always say, it's like, dude, I got the darkest eyeballs, man. I can't even see like the little, the little guy in the center. And so, and I say that, and I'm like, this is my family tree. And when I think of it, I was like, when I was younger, I'm like, dang, man, I wish I had light eyes. I've been dope. And then, like, the older you get, you appreciate, obviously, your family tree. You appreciate the things that you're given. Yeah. And now I'm, what they would say, like, I'm in love with myself in a healthy way. I appreciate who I am. I'm like, it is what it is. It's not like I was, like, up in heaven, like, picking, like, all right, I want, this color hair, this kind of hair, this style eyeballs, whatever. It's like, this is what you're gifted with. This is how you were built. Now, improve on it the best way you can and produce the most you can with what you're given. And that's just the name of the game, becoming a better version of yourself. Forget the physical things. Forget them, right? Think about your brain now, because we always talk about the physical stuff. Yeah, you can go to the gym. Yeah, you can do a bunch of stuff, and we all should, right? Yeah. Fine. But what about the person who's saying, go to the mental gym? Because that's where it's all at, honestly. Yeah. Those people who are gym fanatics, I guarantee I know for a fact they're also mentally strong people. Because it takes a heck of a lot to force yourself to go to the gym. They're motivated, they have goals, whatever it is. They want their waistline to be X, Y, and Z, or their biceps to be whatever level of girth. Like, they have goals. These are mentally strong people. So it coincides with one another. Like, it's a match, right? It's kind of saying, however you do one thing's how you do everything. We heard that all the time. Yes. And also, what are you doing when no one's looking? And that goes with, you're a person who litters. I still can't believe people do this, but I remember, like, that was, like, the biggest campaign in, like, the 90s. Yeah. It's like, don't litter, like, and it was like, people were legit driving out of, like, Burger King, throwing things out the window.
You still see that to the day, but
yeah, of course. Well, right. But I mean, it's less common now to see that than it was. Sure. And that was like, and now that I think about it, I cringe if I were to ever see that. I've generally never seen anyone do it in my adult age. But what I'm saying is, I would cringe. I cringe just at that thought. Yeah. I think of it because I see it on the street. Yes. And I don't know if a trash can fell over and the wind blew it. Sure. I don't know. But I think, I'm like, oh my God, I hope someone didn't just throw that out the window. Yeah. Because that's like, when you really think about that, it's like, oh God. Obviously non-biodegradable stuff, if it was what I'm talking about. Sure. But there's growth. That's growth, because now I think it was like, even if, regardless if you two were in the car or if I'm in the car by myself, I'm not throwing something out the window.
Yes, exactly.
You know what I mean? Or maybe when I was a kid, I didn't think of it like that. Probably pluck, like, like what I always think of is gum. You know, like the aluminum wrappers of those like singled gums, and like rolling it into a ball and like flicking it. That's what I think of. Not nothing crazy. Not like like a bottle of soda or something. Yeah. I'm thinking like even that little thing.
Yes.
Anyway, just reflecting on that is a method of growing as a human. I also think when you're doing the reflection is the where the contemplation part comes in. The contemplation part comes in is like, what if I did X, Y, and Z? So I performed this way, but what if I did X, Y, and Z? Like performed it in another way.
Yeah. And
that's a form of reflection. Also, again, going through the motions, kind of like, all right, seeing where you can improve.
Yeah.
Right.
Is there like a thing you can do that too much? Like you're trying to like plan in every situation that you come like becomes more stifling, I guess.
Yeah. Analysis paralysis.
Okay.
Yes, there's analysis paralysis. So yeah, when you're going through that process, of course, you don't do that to every so every situation has a value in weight, let's just say, right? So some of them are like you just fist fought somebody, right? Versus you forgot to take the trash out and now you have stinky trash in your backyard till the next time the pickup is, right? You're like, dang it, I totally forgot. Like, how can I put that like a little an alarm on my phone or whatever? How can I remember next time? Versus
that's an easy fix.
Right, that's an easy fix where I'm not like, oh my gosh, dude. And how do I go even further? And like, how do I get the squirrels to warn me to like take the trash out or how that's just like, what are you doing, right? Versus I got in an argument with somebody. How did we get there? How could it have been avoided, or how could it have been handled a better way? So I feel like I feel like we need to argue. I really genuinely believe. I feel like people need to argue. You need to argue because you need to get off your chest.
Sure.
I also think that there's a specific approach you should take.
Yeah.
And when I say argue, I don't mean like yelling at the top of your lungs. I mean like having a strong conversation.
Yeah.
A healthy conversation. Get your point across. In a stern way. I'm not saying, beating each other over the head with bats and, yelling the whole time. That's not what I'm saying. You're fighting at that point. That's different. And I know not every argument can be that constructive. Sure. But again, we're talking about majority here. So if I'm looking at that and I lost an argument, I'm going to be driving wherever I'm driving to, whether it's work the next day, the store the next day, I'm going to be thinking about how I could have, you ever like leave an argument and like, oh man, I should have said that. Yeah. I should have said this. Dan, he got me on that one.
Yeah.
Like
I wish I would have said this. All this.
Yeah, of course. And you beat yourself up, but then you're ready for the next time. Right?
Sure.
You are.
Yeah, if you remember.
That's one of the good ones. No, going into an argument with somebody and then reflecting about it and how you could have. That's a perfect, simple example.
Kind of just replaying the hypothetical situation.
Yeah. You do it all the time. When you're in an interview, how could I have answered questions better? Maybe I should address a little more sharper or more appropriate to that job. Whatever. There's all kinds of ways you can reflect. But yeah, to your point, contemplation, you don't want to go too deep, because you can become paralyzed in your thoughts and just stay stuck and take zero action. But self-inquiry and tapping into what could be the best you, I think it's important. Goose, you're the other father here. How often do you reflect on being a father?
How often? Like, honestly, pretty often. Like, you just...
It's a daily thing, right?
Yeah, like, it's just, like... For me, it's... I see the accomplishments of my daughter or where she's at and what she's doing, and, like, I reflect. Is that, like... Did she get there because of me, or did I do something wrong? Did I do something right? Like, how did she get there? Why did she get there? And it's always, like, a ongoing thing. Like, she does something bad... You're like, dang, why did she do that? Like, obviously you take care of it, punish her, do whatever. Then you sit back and like, why did she do that? Did I do something wrong? Did I not take care of it the right way where she just, or whatever. Like, it's just, and then obviously you go on, then next thing you know, she's getting straight A's. Like, dang, how did she get straight A's? Like, was it me being hard on her, or was it like, make her do a lot of homework or make her study more? And that was like her her progression on getting good grades. Like, so it's always like, just like I said, it's a constant thing. It's something that's like always. I mean, for me, it's like my daughter doesn't live with me every day, but it is just about every day that I do think about it. And it's like, and when she's physically with me, it's like more. It pops up more. It's like because you seeing her grow up, whatever, and then you see like the traits that you have, that I have, that she's picking up. So it's like, are they good? Are they bad? Or is it like, I don't know. But it is like a.
I think it's you're thinking like, how am I influencing them?
Yeah.
And through my life, the life that I'm living, how's it affecting them?
Yeah.
Good or bad, right? I mean, it's a daily thing.
And it also, like, she's 13, so I start reflecting. When I was 13, what was I doing? Is she more advanced than I was, or is she not? You know what I mean? Or obviously, I'm a boy, she's a girl. Like, they're totally different things. We're generations apart, but it's like you just like reflect on. All right, is she like to par as a 13-year-old? You know?
Yeah.
And I just compare myself from when I was 13 or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. It is definitely a daily thing. I think it's important to not you want to influence your kids in a positive way, but you also want them to be their own person. Mm-hmm. And so there's this tricky, weird balance without trying to force yourself, and personality on them and developing them, but at the same time you almost have to, because it's like, I want to mold you into become the best version of yourself, but you also they need their space at the same time. Yeah. So it's like this daily trick of like, was that too much? I think that was too much. Yeah. Yeah. Was that not enough? Clearly that was not enough because he's not listening. Whatever, and parenting's not easy. Parenting's hard. And also, you don't use the same tactics for me. I have 2 kids, so how I handled James, my son, my oldest son, is different than how I handled Kate. First of all, they're 2 different age groups, so obviously the approach is totally different. But I already kind of what Goose is saying, how old he, how was he at that age? I think of it, when James was 2, what was he doing? Yeah. And I know it's 2 different people. They're 2 totally different people, and so you gotta embrace that. We gotta go with the flow kind of thing. Obviously, you want to influence them in a positive way. You want them to be awesome, decent, caring, loving, kind human beings. So you have to influence them. Mm-hmm. But not every day you're going to be perfect. So that's where the reflection comes in. Like, dang, I could definitely handle that a little bit better. Mm-hmm. Or you didn't say enough. Sometimes, like, you want them to be their own person so much, you just kind of let a few things slide. And, when they're younger, that's again, they're a sponge, so that's super tricky. You're their guardian, and at the same time, their life is basically in your hands day in and day out. So, raising them is one thing, protecting them is a whole other animal, you know what I mean? Providing for them is a whole other thing. And so there's a lot of moving parts, and I think, we're doing, obviously the best that we can. But yeah, you stop and you think like, dang, I could have did that better, or oh, good, that was good. Sometimes you say stuff and you're like, it just came out naturally, like, holy smoke, I sound like mom, or I sound like dad. And I never used or said those things, and I haven't heard or any of those items in 25 years. Yeah. But it's ingrained there somewhere. Mom and pop said that to me at some point in my life, and it stayed with me. But if someone says something to you when you're 8, you might use that every single day of your life, but you don't realize that's when you initially heard it. Yeah. I'm like, oh my God, I haven't heard that in a long ass time. But anyway, the whole parenting thing, that's tricky, and there's experts out there for that, and I'm doing what the best I believe that's for my kids and my family. But when I think about it, I beat myself up driving to and from work. Dang, dude, you got to do better with this. Dang, you got to blah, 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 be on top of him for this. Don't forget to tell him when you get home. Blah, blah, blah. Buddy, are you praying? Saying all these things. Yeah. And then, you get people who are super, critical on everything you do and say, and you're like caught in like this thing, like, oh my God, maybe they're right, whatever. Especially when it's voting season. Yeah. You have people having their kids do and say certain things, and then somebody's offended by that. And it's like, dude, like, they're the parent, what are you going to say? Whether it's good or bad, I mean, and not everyone here is perfect, right? And so I'm sure there's things that you do that not everyone's going to agree with. I'm sure there's things that I do that not everyone's going to agree with. So whether it's, political views, religious views, whatever, no one's perfect. And so, but it's that progressive, each day you learn off of it, you talk about it, you reflect, you talk to your significant other or whatever, and keep it moving. We're not, this thing don't, it doesn't come with the book, so to speak. But anyway, outside of, my personal beliefs is the Bible, but, burping a baby and, having them sleep a certain way in their crib, that stuff's unwritten. And if you do find a book on it, I guarantee there's another book saying the complete opposite of what that technique is. Anyway, so here we are, 2020, crazy year, man in the mirror, reflection. We wanted to do a part 2. I personally wanted to do a part 2 because I think it's an important topic, and I think it's every once in a while, we have guests, and it's awesome, and, we learn from each and every one of those. But to tie back in how we started was, these were the podcasts that we had, and these are the conversations that we had. So I think it's paramount that we pull things back every once in a while.
Revisit.
Yes. Even if it's 3.5 years later. It's just crazy to say, right?
I know.
That is.
So, all right. So there you have it. All right. We like to close things out with quotes. And the first one is by Thomas Pane. The real man smiles in trouble, gathers strength from distress, and grows brave by reflection. Second one by Alan Cohen. Everyone and everything that shows up in our life is a reflection of something that is happening inside of us. Man in the Mirror Part 2. In this episode, we discuss reflection, contemplation, self-inquiry, and insight. We revisit these topics from episode 47 and completely break down the process of reflection, the importance of it, and its advantages. We wrap the episode up with quotes from Alan Cohen and Thomas Pane. Awesome. Guys, thanks again for joining us. The Rotated Views podcast was produced for self-development purposes. Huge shout out to our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by the Blessed Lifestyle brand. That is BL3SSED.com. Also sponsored by The Motivation Files Unleashed. This motivational mixtape will be your fuel for success. Available on all platforms. Guys, don't forget to visit the website, JimmyleeVelez.com. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Rotated Views. If you have any inquiries or questions, email us at info@JimmyleeVelez.com. On behalf of myself and the rest of the crew, we wish you massive success. Stay blessed.